Hello, I'm Stephen Carroll. Welcome to your Essential Business Briefing. Coming up, as the World Cup draws closer to the final, we're looking at how companies are spending more on the women's game, but still less than they do on men's football. A proposal to legalise cannabis in France gets shut down by the government, but could it help boost the economy? And why an increasing number of French people are choosing co-living over apartments in major cities. First up, though, the final of the Women's Football World Cup is fast approaching. The competition is attracting record TV audiences in some countries, and tens of thousands of fans have watched the action in venues around France. But the women's game still attracts less sponsorship money than the men's, and many female players are paid less than their male counterparts. Ahead of the competition, France 24's Annette Young spoke to Norwegian player Ada Hegerberg, who won the Ballon d'Or prize last year. She's not taking part in the World Cup because she feels that women's teams aren't being treated equally.
In the end, it's not about money either. It's all about attitude and respect for the sport. Women being treated equally as men. I always try to look on what we players can do. And obviously it's to train hard, work well, and to increase the level in the game, which is the most important thing, so that people actually can't outsee us. But also stand together and use that voice we have to push for the change.
To talk about this further, we're joined from Loughborough University in the UK by Elisavet Manoli, who's a lecturer in sports marketing and communication there. Elisavet, thanks for being with us. We were just hearing there from Ada Hegerberg. She says it's not about the money, but we know that money is very important in sport. Can you give us an idea of how big the gap is when it comes to money in men's and women's football?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. It is true to an extent that it can't be only about the money. When we talk about appreciating football, we have to mean something more than just appreciating the value that comes with it. But the value is important, as you said. So what we've seen this year, and it is worth noting that FIFA has promised that more money will be spent on women's football. They have already said that they're going to make sure that the players are actually paid more, that the bonuses they receive are higher. And we've seen the same happening from sponsors. So they do step up, and they do say that we aim to give the same bonuses to men and women, which is great. But we are still a long way to go until we actually have a comparable size to men's football. Don't forget, women's football hasn't been around or popular for that long. So it does take time.
And when we talk about the sort of sponsorship budgets that are applied in this area, is it just about audiences? Because you kind of wonder, as audiences are growing this time around, is the sponsorship money going to come with it?
Well, we do expect to see that. We've already seen brands actually stepping in and covering that gap that already exists. However, it is a change that we have to see in the sponsors as well, and a change in their behavior, if I may. So women's football, women's sports in general, have been viewed as more of a cause-related marketing effort. So you are sponsoring them because it makes sense that your brand appears to be good, to be nice, to be sponsoring a sport that is not that popular. I think they have to move past that now. They have to move towards a more strategic marketing approach. Women are a very big audience. They have a lot of commercial power. They purchase a lot of products. So why not actually treat them as consumers and try to attract them as consumers when sponsoring women's sports? Fans have demonstrated that there is an increased interest, and they will, of course, make people pay more attention to the sport. But I think it needs to be more of a bigger effort, and it needs to be more of a bigger effort mentally in how we treat women's sports, even by the media. So it's the first time we've seen the World Cup being covered so much.
Because there have been some broadcasters that were sort of caught off guard by the size of the audiences. Here in France, we've had the price of advertising slots being increased after the first matches when broadcasters realised how valuable, I suppose, this area could be. Do we think that we'll see more companies catching up with that as well and realising the power that this sport has from a commercial point of view as well?
We already see some big brands getting involved and getting involved actively, so developing a partnership with the teams, not just chasing after just one big event or one big match, but actually developing a long-term partnership where over a period of years, they will promote the work that they do and they will try and co-brand something rather than just put their logo on a shirt.
One of the big sponsorship signings recently for the sport was Barclays in the UK, saying they were going to spend £10 million on the Women's Football League. Is that the sort of thing we should expect to see more of? Is that a good strategic decision being made by their marketing department?
I think that's a great decision because it's also a long-term decision. Barclays is going to sponsor the league, so that's something that will have more matches over time, we'll have more coverage over time, and we'll actually get people more involved. And their brand can gradually start getting to be associated with women's football. Also, don't forget that fandom is often built, especially in the UK, with the clubs, not the national leagues. So we'll possibly see more brand associations there, and I think that's where maybe some income can be generated for the big brands.
Do you think pay equality will help also companies to get on board with that idea? Will this become a lead issue, that if a team or a national league is paying its female players equally to the men, that then there will be more companies willing to support them?
It is a whole ecosystem within sport. So when a sponsor starts, a broadcaster follows, the league, in a way, needs to be leading this, or the national governing body or the international federation, they need to be showing that support first. But one tends to follow with the other. We see some exceptional talent on the pitch, some really amazing players that have a wonderful presence as a brand as well. So it is only about time that brands caught up with it.
We're here talking about money, but of course, as you say, the real action is on the pitch. Does money help to buy success for these teams?
I think it would be unfair of me to say that it doesn't. We do see that when more money is being spent on any sport, more money helps develop that sport, and therefore that quite often leads to success. It might not be, again, a 1-to-1 ratio, but we do see a correlation there.
OK, Elisavet Manoli from Loughborough University in the UK. Thank you very much for speaking to us. Now, French people, according to surveys, are among the biggest users of cannabis in Europe. A committee of experts commissioned by the Health Ministry has recommended looking at legalising the drug for therapeutic purposes, while a group of economists, doctors and MPs, including some from President Macron's party, has called for a wider legalisation, something that's not currently envisaged by the French government. So what are the potential economic benefits and how do they stack up against other places that have tried legalising weed? Kate Moody's been finding out. Kate.
Well, Stephen, the Council of Economic Analysis left no room for doubt. Legalising marijuana in France could create up to 80,000 jobs and bring in as much as 2.8 billion euros to state coffers. The report said the move would also save the 568 million euros currently being spent on policing and illegal proceedings. Analysis in Spain has suggested that legalisation would earn its government up to 3.3 billion euros. Past precedent is difficult to measure. Uruguay, the first country to legalise the drug for recreational use, still only has a handful of approved distributors who've struggled to get bank financing. Investment in the market there is growing, hitting around 87 million euros. Canada is seen as a better model. It changed its laws in October 2018, and the first year of sales is expected to add around 5 billion euros to the economy. The government of the U.S. state of Colorado, meanwhile, brought in just under 220 million euros on about 1.3 billion in sales in 2017. About 13% of those funds then went on to public school systems. Legalization does come with side effects, many of which remain unstudied. The same data from Colorado show an increase in the number of hospitalizations linked to marijuana use since it was legalized, as well as a slight rise in traffic accidents. There can also be legal risks for business owners because of the difference in laws across state or national borders. One of the high points of the industry is the cannabis extract CBD. It's a non-intoxicating component of the plant and is increasingly being embraced by health and wellness companies worldwide. CBD is being sold in everything from body creams to candies. Industry analysis suggests that sales of CBD products in the US alone could top 1.5 billion euros by 2022, outpacing marijuana altogether. Stephen?
Kate, thank you very much for that. Well, now back here in France, and a potential solution to the housing shortage in many cities. As young workers in particular find it difficult to secure a place to live, there's been increased interest in so-called co-living. These are shared houses or buildings with private rooms that are rented individually but have common facilities. Clement Bonnereau reports.
It's an exciting step for millions of young graduates every year, moving to a new city and starting out a professional career. But for many, finding a place to rent can be a nightmare. Co-living might just be the solution. This house in the suburbs of Paris provides accommodation to 15 people who did not know each other before moving in. Each bedroom is around 10 square meters.
All the rooms look the same. You just have to add a little decoration. There's a desk, a bed, and a private bathroom. It's great.
Each tenant pays around €800 a month for rent, with all utilities included. They also have access to common areas such as this game room in the basement, this large terrace, and this 60 square meter living room that doubles up as a kitchen. Would you be able to afford all of this if you lived on your own?
Yes, but I wouldn't get the same standard of living.
I don't think I could. I don't earn enough money.
As major French cities, including Paris, face a shortage of housing, co-living is gaining in popularity. The average rent for a studio apartment in Paris is €1,000 a month, and competition is fierce. Flat shares are often cheaper than living alone, but they can be difficult to organise. They usually involve signing a group contract, which means that all tenants are responsible for the entire sum of the rent. By contrast, co-living is more expensive than regular shared apartments, but tenants are free to leave at any time.
Young adults put off commitments like home ownership and marriage for later. They don't want to live in student housing, but they're not interested in traditional housing either. So there's definitely a gap in the market.
Investors are trying to keep up with the growing demand for co-living. It's expected that 30 co-living buildings will spring up across the country over the next 3 years.
Well, that's it from us for now, but you'll always find the best of our business coverage on our Facebook page, France 24 Business, or you can tweet me with your questions at @NewStephen. Until next time, thanks for watching.
France and fashion go hand in hand. Expert design and craftsmanship have made this country the king of the global fashion industry.
And Paris is often called the fashion capital. A mix of couture and what's happening on the street is very interesting. That's unique to France. But it's not just the fancy haute couture. Everyday fashion is also a source of fascination abroad.
There's a certain je ne sais quoi to how people dress here. They're so chic, and yet it seems so effortless. How do they do it?
On reste toujours dans un classique.
Chic et intemporel. Join us for this episode of French Connections Plus, where we turn the fabulous world of French fashion inside out.
French Connections Plus, presented by Jeannie Godula and Florence Villeminot on France 24 and France24.com.